the Madman!
Welcome to a pretty large review on the newer cards of March of the Lich King. We got Rogue, we got all the Priest cards, and we got Hunter here. Let's start by looking at the Rogue legendary spell, Shadow of Demise, Shadow Spell. Each time you cast a spell, transform this into a copy of it. I'm sure a lot of rogues have always wanted to run a third copy of a spell in their deck. This is just universally good because now you can. But if you're only thinking about running this as a third copy of a spell, you may not be thinking enough. Because what if there were a way to make a spell that was overpowered, and then you could cast Shadow of Demise as a copy of that spell? And by the way, this card does come into your hand as a Shadow of Demise, so one of the drawbacks is you do need to cast a spell while this is in your hand to transform it into a copy of it. I'm assuming that's how it works. One of the spells that just might be strong enough that you really want a third or fourth or a fifth copy of it in your deck is Sketchy Information, because this Scourge Illusionist card that got revealed, this is absolutely insane. 4 mana 4/4 undead Death Rattle, add a 4/4 copy of another Death Rattle minion in your deck to your hand. A 4/4 copy. It costs 4 less. That means when this Scourge Illusionist dies, if you copy anything that costs 4 or less in your deck, it's a 0 mana 4/4, which also has a Death Rattle. That's bonkers! You don't even need this to be like some sort of sick combo. You don't need to aim at anything in particular. You hit a Treasure Guard, and you got a 0 mana 4/4 taunt with Death Rattle, draw a card. What may be even better is if you get a high cost Death Rattle card, you can get a Stoneborn General with this card, and then it'll cost 6 mana, and that's just tremendous value. So I think that there is real potential for maybe not a full-blown Death Rattle deck, but for there to be just some amounts of Death Rattle support. But yeah, Scourge Illusionist, tremendous amounts of value. You got its friend, the Rotten Rodent, 2 mana 2/1 undead beast. Battlecry, reduce the cost of all Death Rattle cards in your deck by 1. Part of the reason why I cautioned the idea of going full Death Rattle is I don't think there's enough good Death Rattles, and I don't think there's enough justification to run Rotten Rodent. So, well, that's my thoughts on that. And then you got Noxious Infiltrator. It's an interesting rogue value card. 4 mana 2/5 with Poisonous. Battlecry, if a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 1 damage to a minion. Wow, if Rogue gets any good undead minions, this card is really, really strong. A 4 mana 2/5 Poisonous isn't bad by itself, but it's a 4 mana 2/5 Poisonous which comes into play, and then assuming you had an undead die pretty recently, it just kills a guy. So we're looking for some good undead minions here. The undead minions also combo with Scourge Illusionist, getting invincible. I think we got perhaps a mid-rangey rogue build potentially here. Gonna have to wait and see my set of cards. But with the pre-knowledge of my cards, I can see Noxious Infiltrator and Scourge Illusionist and Shadow of Demise being quite useful indeed. Alright, we got the full 10 cards of Priest to look at here. We'll start with Sister Svolna. 6 mana 6/6 Priest Legendary, undead. Battlecry, permanently add a Vision of Darkness to your hand. The Vision of Darkness is a 3 mana Discover a Shadow spell. This is actually exactly the type of card that speaks out to me the most. Pay a small price each turn, 3 mana, and then you just pull a shadow spell out from the ether into your hand. Doesn't matter how bad that shadow spell is, eventually you'll get enough shadow spells that do stuff that you'll eventually kill your opponent. It's a 1-woman win condition here for Priest. Though obviously ludicrously slow, but eventually gets there. The only question would then be, first of all, do you want to be playing that deck? Is it actually successful? Possibly not, because of, the amount of burst out there. But 2, is it the best way to get ludicrous amounts of value over time? It competes with the Blood Death Knight plan to do that. it competes with like Quest Priest just winning the game. Other than that one card, I think the rest of the Priest cards this set generally push a undead, aggressive, tempo-based Priest deck. The game plan starts with Crystal Smith Cultist, which is a 1 mana 2/3. Obviously, you're going to want to be running shadow spells. Hopefully, you draw both the Cultist and a shadow spell early on. You follow that up with a Mind Eater, a 2 mana 3/2. Death Rattle, add a copy of a card in your opponent's deck to your hand. It's a very efficient card. A 2 mana 3/2 that like goes card neutral. Gets a pretty useful card because it's a card from the opponent's deck, and it's an undead. The fact that that's an undead is very impactful. There's a lot of cards that impact undead here. But let's keep going down the minion route here. We got Haunting Nightmare, 3 mana 3/3 undead, Death Rattle, haunt a card in your hand. When you play it, summon a 3/3 soldier. So this too rewards you for playing a smaller tempo deck because you're going to want to get that 3/3 soldier as soon as possible. So the 3/3 soldier, it's not an undead, but you can kind of qualify it as a 0 mana 3/3 soldier, assuming you put it onto, like, assuming the Nightmare goes onto a card that you can play pretty quickly. And then you got the higher end minions here, the Bone Caller, 4 mana 2/4 taunt, Death Rattle, resurrect a friendly undead that died this game. There's quite a lot of resurrecting undead. You got High Cultist Basilisk, 5 mana 3/5, Battlecry, resurrect all friendly undead that died after your last turn. Those two minions together kind of point you in the direction of wanting to have a pretty large swarm of undead, and then, you know, sending them face, your opponent like eventually kills them, and then you use Bone Caller and High Cultist and Basilisk to resurrect them. You know how else you can resurrect them? You have Animate Dead, a 1 mana shadow spell which resurrects a friendly minion that costs 3 or less. One of the best targets to hit with that. You got the Scourge Rager card in neutral. It's a 3 mana 5/4 undead with Reborn, Battlecry, die. So if you animate dead that Scourge Rager, it's 1 mana for 5/4 that you got. Now, unfortunately, this is a random one, so, you know, hitting the Scourge Rager, that's going to be pretty hard, especially since it seems like you're going to want to actually be playing the other undead minions as well. So I'm not entirely sure about this Scourge Rager thing, but it's a cute high roll idea. You'll want to be playing a lot of undead types of minions because of Undying Allies. 0 mana shadow spell. After you play an undead this turn, give it Reborn. So basically, for 1 turn, you can make it so that all the undead you play have Reborn. That's pretty sweet. You have this spell that gets you to refuel pretty easily. Grave Digging, 4 mana, draw 2 cards. Costs 1 if a friendly undead died after your last turn. Shadow spell as well. So this card, I mean, if you have a bunch of undead, this really does just cost 1 mana to draw 2 cards. So fantastic refill card. This allows you to run a lot of cheap undead and keep going. And then you got this top end spell here, Shadow Word Undeath. 5 mana, shadow spell. Deal 2 damage to enemies. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 2 more. A little bit of an unusual type of card in a tempo deck, but that is pretty efficient. 5 mana to just deal 4 to all enemies. So yeah, it looks like there's really a shadow aggressive priest deck here. And that used to be a deck. It could certainly be retooled to run quite a few of these cards, quite a few of the more aggressive undead cards. So if you are a priest deck that secretly wants to go face and embrace your inner hunter, this is your chance. Unusually enough, a hunter has quite a lot of control cards. So if you're a hunter that wants to embrace your inner control self, this might be it for you. Scourge Tamer, 2 mana 2/2 undead, Battlecry, craft a custom Zombeast. A Zombeast is where you discover 2 beasts, both of which cost 5 or less, and then you add them together. So this is basically Battlecry, draw a quite good card. Could slot right into the current Beast Hunter deck. Kinda difficult to find room for, but you have 40 cards. Like, this could easily fit the 39th and 40th best card. That card just speaks value. A lot of classes would love that. You got Keen Eye Spotter, 3 mana 3/4. Whenever your hero attacks a minion, set its health to 1. So there's a small theme here of using weapons to attack as Hunter. If you've got something small, such as Candle Shot, equipped, your Keen Eye Spotter can make your Candle Shot basically kill minions. So, nice efficient little 3 mana 3/4. Comes with a Hunter's Mark immediately. Might be too specific to actually see play. Next we got Shock Spitter, 2 mana 2/2 beast with Battlecry, deal 1 damage, improved by your hero attacks this game. That means if you use a Candle Shot, you are already going to deal 4 damage for 2 mana and get a 2/2. That's an awesome deal. If you use 2 Candle Shots, or like a Candle Shot and like a variety of other weapons, dealing 6 total durability, 6 total attacks, it's 2 mana to deal 7 damage. That's a lot of damage for 2 mana, especially in Hunter. And anytime you can deal that much damage in a Battlecry, you start thinking about putting Bran in, you start thinking about, wow, maybe I could build a combo deck off of that. Maybe you can build a combo deck off of this. Maybe this does create a different archetype, where you have a few weapons, you attack a few times, you control the board a bit, you end the game with Bran, Shock Spitter, Shock Spitter. If you need more weapon attacks, you've got the legendary weapon, the Hope of Quanthalos. 6 mana 4/2 legendary weapon after your hero attacks. Give your minions +1/+1 wherever they are. It's a really interesting card to look at because off of a basic valuation, this card seems insane. This is 2 Invigorating Sermons on a 4/2 weapon. Plus, because you drew your 2 Invigorating Sermons, you throw an Arcane Intellect into that. So the 4 mana 4/2 weapon plus the 3 mana draw 2 plus 2 Invigorating Sermons costing 4 apiece. Theoretically, this all bundled together should cost 15 mana, and it only costs 6. So that's a pretty good deal. Now, unfortunately, it's pretty slow in a class that's not usually this slow. The point is, it's a lot of minion value, and if the meta goes long enough that you can actually use your minions to eventually overwhelm control decks because of the sheer amount of threat posed by all your minions when they get +2/+2. I could see something like this. This isn't that much unlike the current Beast Hunter plan, which is to have mid-range minions that are such high value that it is very difficult for control decks to be able to deal with and answer all of those things before they eventually die. Looking forward to revealing my cards. I do think that my cards alongside the currently reviewed cards, they do combine together and they could create a new type of rogue, so stay tuned.